And some are even a-hole. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you could kind of help. I mean, personally, this would be educational for myself because some of those acronyms I did not know exist. I knew 3 of them, but some of the other ones I had never seen it before until I was looking at Jay's presentation and saw that. So if help us, and then that's where next week when we start talking about actual quarterbacks and maybe free agent moves, and in future shows when we start talking about trades and drafting, we'll be working from a knowledge point of view of what really can happen, and not us from fans that saying something that's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So you got it, guy. Whenever you're ready.
Boys and girls, once upon a time, there was a land where there were contracts, and it's called different types of free agents. There are different types of free agents, guys. You have quite a few, but I like, as usual, because football is such an intricate sport, and it's a contact sport, which is unlike from a contract or even a plan standpoint, unlike any other entity, because you have people who are actually in the sport, and basically there's a possibility that every time that they step on the field, there's a possibility they may be carried off. So their contracts are kind of conducive to that. One of the very first things, if you looked at, you'll hear the word UFA. UFA is an unrestricted free agent. So that's any player with 4 more accrued seasons and an expired contract. They're free to negotiate and sign with any team once their contract is up. A restricted free agent is a little different. It's a player with 3 accrued seasons and an expired contract. RFAs are free to negotiate and sign with any team, but their original team can offer them one of various qualifying offers, or they call tenders, that come up with the right of first refusal and or draft pick compensation. If the tender is withdrawn by a team, the RFA becomes an unrestricted free agent. In 2020, teams they submitted the tenders before 4 p.m. Eastern time, March 18th, and these amounts change annually. And the following numbers are for the 2020 season. So players can choose either A or B, regardless of which is greater than the applicable tenders below. I'm also going to just tell you real quick before I go back there, there's another type of free agent, which is an exclusive rights free agent. And that should be the next slide. Okay. Sure, a non-exclusive franchise tag. Oh, I did that, but the exclusive rights free agent, I'm going to kind of go off the cuff with this one. They call them ERFAs, and they're any players with fewer than 3 accrued seasons and an expired contract. If the player's original team offers them a 1-year contract at the league minimum, which is based on like his credited seasons, the player can't negotiate with other teams. If you bounce back into the other one, we have something called a non-exclusive franchise tag. This player receives a non-exclusive franchise tag. They're free to negotiate with other teams. The player receives a 1-year deal with a salary set at the greater of A, the cap percentage average of his position, an amount equal to the sum of the franchise tag figures at a player's position over the previous 5 seasons, divided by the sum of salary caps over the previous 5 seasons, multiplied by the current year's salary cap, or 120% of his PYS. And that's the player's cap number.
Is this the function of X? Are we talking about calculus now?
Yeah, we are. You might have known. Wait, hey, junior year. Hey, go back, junior year, Lynn Bloom. Yeah, that's why we all crazy now. And that's minus any performance incentives. Let me kind of break a couple things down. Now, with the restricted free agent, their tenders are classified like say the first round tender, which is like a 1-year contract, is worth the greater of maybe 4.6 million, or B, 110% of the player's prior year's base salary. And the player's original team, if they decide not to match the offer sheet signed with another team, they're entitled to a first round draft pick from the player's new team, unless received. Unless received 2 days or later prior to the NFL draft. Draft compensation for each tender is due in the same league year as the offer sheet is signed. And of course, that offer sheet has with a new team, it includes like principal terms that must be matched by the prior club. So the new team includes terms that waive or limit its ability to designate the restricted free agent, designate restricted free agent as a franchise player, the old team will not have to match this term if it's tendered the player with an offer worth $500,000 or more than the first round tender. Then there's second round rules. There's original round rules, rights of refusal. Basically, in a nutshell, contracts in the NFL, it's almost like trying to get a stuntman life insurance. And I say that because the truth of the matter is, we talked off camera about it. The difference being, like, you look at these basketball players that are really good, they'll sign like a 10-year, $130-something million guaranteed contract, which basically means there's been a few instances where guys like Gilbert Arenas and even in baseball, Bobby Bonilla, guys have been out for years and they're still getting paid. In football, it's totally different. If you look at contracts and they're like, I'm going to give you a perfect example, something like with credited seasons, like the minimum salaries, like if you have 0 credited seasons, the minimum is $610, and if you've got 7+, it's like $1.050 million. So it's almost like a performance-based thing, but really less performance-based, or more so trying to protect the team to say, okay, this dude is a running back and he's great, but he's running into 200-pound guys at least 25, 30 times. So his chance of getting injured and us like making him being a liability would kind of be against what we do. So that's why you see a lot of guys right now when people say football players are selfish. I honestly don't think they are, because they're totally different. They're totally different because look at how many players that you see now that are Hall of Fame players. Some of them are blessed enough to have had like endorsements and were really good with their money. But I'm talking about your average football player with like 5 years. You see them about 10 years after they've retired, and you look at them, they're walking around, their backs are crooked, their limbs, their fingers are broken. And guess what? And I think if it's not, I'm not mistaken, I think if you haven't gotten the vet clause or whatever it is, you don't get a pension. You just basically, it's like, good luck. You know, you shouldn't have came out in your second year. You should use your degree. And it's sad but it's unfortunate. Just like I said, like insurance companies try to give stuntmen like getting life insurance for them. The premiums are so high because the risk is higher. And with guys like Plank knocking everybody out, they probably try to pay you in like, Schlitz malt liquor. You don't even drink. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
but real quick, you know what? Something I wanted to just say real quick about this, because I mean, it made my head spin reading it. Like with the exclusive rights free agent, like a guy like last year's like Levi Wallace of the Bills, but then you got the franchise tag too. That's totally different. There's different types of franchise tag guys. You got multiple franchise tags. You got restricted franchise tags, and if you think it's really tough, think about this. When you talk about franchise tags, I think there's only 3 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that have even been made franchise players. Because as franchise players, what happens is you get like a 1-year contract, but it's conducive to, I want to say, the top 5 salaries of that position, plus maybe it's like 110% of the salary or something like that. Yep. So that's why a lot of players don't like it, because what happens is, say for instance, you're better than these guys and they pay this money for 1 year, you'll go into negotiations in next year if your numbers are similar or even a little bit better, because the number represents the top 5 players. And some of these guys, unfortunately, are dealing with some franchises that are willing to do like maybe Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones would be like, hey, here's my checkbook. You put a number in there and let's negotiate. And if the guy is good, like say with Dak Prescott, they open up the book, but you might get a guy that's maybe not even nearly as good, and he's made a franchise player now. They're hit, yeah. Now, like say for instance, if the average is like $20 million, just say a quarterback is like $20 million, or as I look at the transition tag salaries, the quarterback's average is like 24.837. You give Nick Foles $24 million. Think
Brian
about
Pace
it.
Guy, I think I got you. I got you. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm gonna put this in layman's terms, okay?
Even I can understand it.
If you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and she decides to leave, it doesn't cost you anything. She just goes. That's an unrestricted free agent. If you got a fiance and they decide to leave, You got to get your ring back. You spend 10% of your salary on that. They got to get back the ring. That's what you call a restricted free agent. If you got a wife and she decides to leave, that's half your money. That's a franchise tag.
That's a franchise tag.
Okay. How about this? Here's another restricted free agent.
What we got?
Say you and your lady gonna break up. Y'all can't break up unless you give her the TV. That's a restricted free agent. A franchise tag. You want to know what a franchise tag is?
A bloody nose?
No, it's not a bloody nose. It's like you belongs to me, Harpo. I'm pregnant.
I mean a bloody nose.
It's like, okay, so now you got to stick around, and guess what? She's going to be the player. What you're going to have to do is look at 5 of your friends who probably got better jobs than you, and your girl's going to be like, you know what? Let's see. Johnny makes about 115